Uh, Talking of biases, I'm going to talk about anchoring today. So, welcome to Subramani. Please subscribe. Please please click on the bell icon. And thanks for subscribing. And I'm happy to see my number of subscribers crossing 41,000. More importantly, I was talking about anchoring. Anchoring means you take some number, some random number, and you suddenly anchor around that, right? So I'll give you an example of that. But largely, the anchoring that you see with investors is when they buy a share, they buy it at a particular price. Let's say they bought it at 25 rupees for whatever share. And then they start anchoring around that price. Then when the price goes up, they tell themselves, okay, it will double and it will triple or whatever. Depends on the speed at which it goes up. So then afterwards, when the price comes down, they then tell themselves, oh, but it will not come below 25, right? So this is what is called the my price syndrome. At least I call it the my price syndrome. I don't know who coined the word, but saying it will not come below 25. Or when the share price goes to 250 and then it comes down to 240, so that's okay. If it comes down a little bit, it will not touch my price anyway, right? So this is called the my price syndrome. And then suppose it comes down from 250 to 150, and then you sell it off, and then for some reason you sell it off. Then you look at it and say, oh, I made 125 rupees. It's not so bad. You actually missed out at 150 to 250 rupees, right? But that anchoring helps, saying, oh, this is the price below which it will not go. That is the my price syndrome. And another thing is how anchoring does impact is there was a class in which people were asked to guess at what age a big national leader was killed, and the earlier one part of the class was told that he died young, and the other part was just given some random numbers, 9, 140 and 110 and 82 and things like that. And they had a discussion, and they came to the conclusion that the age at which this man had died was something like 90. Even though they had some information that he had died young, but obviously they could not choose 9 because 9 was not fair, because you're not even a man, you're a boy. So they did not anchor around 9, which I thought was too obvious that they wouldn't anchor around 9. So, but they anchored around 82 for some time, and then they said maybe you died at 82, but then 82 is not young, so they don't know whether to accept 67 as young or say 70 as young. So they came out with some numbers, and then they perhaps forgot that, and they said, is it 90? The correct age was 67. But it didn't matter whether at what age he had died, simply because here were people who did not have too much knowledge of history, and that was chosen in a particular way. They were asked about a leader of another country. So fairly obvious they did not know much, and none of them was a great student of history. Not that he was not a very famous person or she was not a very famous personality, was a famous personality. But chances are that, for example, you may not remember at what age some president of the US died, or things like that. Or you may know about India. You may not know at what age Indira Gandhi was killed, but you may not know at what age George Washington died, or any of that stuff. You may not be updated, or at least George Washington you may be, but say a Lyndon Johnson or somebody like that, you may not know the age at which they died, or George Bush Senior, George Bush. Right, so those kind of questions you may not be able to answer. So you don't know. It is not called out of history. It is called out of your own anchoring problem, that you pick up some number from your head and you think, oh, it became president, it must have been at this age, etc., etc. You calculate and you come out with a number. So anchoring starts like that. So you think of some number and you start worrying about it, right? Or rather you start framing your answer around that. So what is the weight of a Boeing? Whether it is 100 kilos, 100,000 kilos, you have no clue. So you just pick up a number and that number could be completely wrong. No, it's okay if you don't know the weight of a blue whale or the weight of an African elephant versus an Indian elephant. It's perfectly all right. But when you start anchoring around some numbers, saying, oh, last year we got 26% in equity, so this year we should get at least 22%. Don't anchor, because if you take the numbers of the returns that you have got in equity over a long period of time, you will find it is completely random. So if you anchor, you'll definitely get it wrong. So you will get a -5, 4, 22, 63, -41, right? You will get all these kind of numbers. It's completely random. The standard deviation is very high. So the word arithmetic mean makes no sense, but still people will go and pick and say, oh, on an average 12% return to milna chahiye equity mein. Again anchoring, because you heard it somewhere. Somebody told you that 12% in equity and 7% in debt is a given in Indian conditions. Well, if it is that true, you don't need asset allocation. You should be putting all your money in equities, right? So that doesn't happen, right? So don't pick up some number and start believing stories around that. This is the problem called anchoring.